Hey you guys, Trey here, and today we're going to talk about guitars. So a while back somebody asked me to talk about the guitars that they heard in a different video where I was talking about vocal chops. So I want to talk about my technique in approaching guitar for pop music. I want to talk about some of the sounds I use, and I want to talk about my recording approach. So here we go. So with pop music, I always feel like the key word is simplicity. That's good for me because I get to pick my guitar up maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks, sometimes once a month. With pop music, if you watch what I do just as a player, you see a lot of blues influence. I grew up in Louisiana. Blues was just part of the language there, so it's typical of my sound. And my background was rock and alternative, so those things are just second nature to me. But with pop music, especially these days, I feel like two things that I try to incorporate in my sound are soul and funk. And I guess if I were to try to emulate soul, it's not very far off from the blues, right? In fact, I guess if I had to think about where I'm tapping into my sound, I don't know where it came from, but one of the guys that I really relate to sound-wise is Al Green. I don't know if everybody really knows that Al Green played all that guitar stuff on his music. He was phenomenal, you know. For me, when it comes to pop music, I think percussively. I try to throw some soul into it. Even if I'm playing something more melodic that's not so soulful. And also the other side of pop music is the funky side. Or anything like that. And again, a lot of the funky guitar, which derives back from the late 70s, early 80s stuff, a lot of very percussive things happening there. So, and all that stuff lends itself nicely to pop music today. So I want to show you a song that I've got up. It's a very simple part, so let me play it for you. I'll show you how I laid the part, and I'll show you the sounds that I used. I'm keeping sort of a constant rhythmic flow, whether I'm playing the notes or I'm just chunking it. Because here's the part over the chorus. All right, so you kind of get it. All right, so that's the same sound, very percussive. It worked nicely, and as I'm creating those parts, I'm kind of working back and forth with the vocals so that I know that the part isn't in any way distracting from the vocal. So let me first of all talk about the tracking of the part. So I'm going to open this up. This is my chorus part that I just showed you. So this is sort of my approach. What I do is I just loop a part, and I will just play and play till I hit a few riffs or ideas that I really like. Once I have it down, I'll start chopping things up. Everything you see in blue are the final parts. All right, so let's talk about the sound that I used. I want to start with how I'm bringing the sound in. So I use a Universal Audio Apollo Thunderbolt. It's a great audio interface. And in the case of my guitar stuff, I'm plugging directly into the front of my Apollo, and I'm running it through 1073 just to get a little beef in the front end of the sound. I don't run it too hot. Coming out of the UA stuff, I bring it into my track here. The first thing I run through is a guitar rig. This is a Native Instruments plugin. Now that's the basic sound. I like to start with this sound a lot with this type of percussive thing that I play. One of the things that helps me get a little bit more of a edgy and radio sound, again, if you've been watching my videos, you know I use this plugin a ton, and it's the Combinaut. So the last thing in my chain is this compressor. Now I'm using this as a side chain. I'm not side chaining it to the kick. The place that I want to push the guitar out of the way from is I want to get it out of the way of the vocal. What I've done here with this compressor is I've side chained it to my vocal coming in here. When he's singing, it just pushes it back just enough to kind of let the vocal have the center stage. So with the guitar sound, one of my favorite aspects of that particular patch was this cool, it's called the little Reflektor. It's just a huge, beautiful verb that I love. But if I try to run this whole guitar rig setup and then run the Combinaut on top of that, it just makes the whole thing a wash. It's a huge, deep, long verb. It compresses it all in a way that I don't like. So what I did in this particular case is I set up a guitar verb separately. I used the Reflektor. So I pulled up the same patch. I turned everything off and it except the actual little Reflektor. And I still ran a Combinaut on it, which gives it a really sort of mid-rangey tone. But instead of it being super washy and really taking over the guitar sound, since I have it on a send, I can control how much verb goes in. And again, I actually ran a sidechain compressor to the vocal, making sure the vocal is front and center, pushing those things out of the way because they take over a lot of the same frequency range. And also I ran an EQ here, so you'll see in my verb, I really rolled everything off after 149, and I rolled everything off in the top after about 2.8 kilohertz. So just really focusing just on the mid-range tones of that verb. Without the verb, and you see how I've got some EQ settings here, so again, quite a bit of unnecessary low in here. Roll that out a little bit. Now it was getting a little thick in this sort of low mids here, right around 295, so I rolled a little bit of that out, but then I gave it some more presence. Right around 2.78K. And that just total presence to cut through just a little bit. I'm not going to play the vocal because this is a song that an artist has not yet released, so I can't play the vocal, but you can hear how prominent and loud the guitar is in there. Imagine the vocal riding over that without running the side chain. I don't think I've done a video on that yet. Maybe I need to, but remember, if you've got a lot of sounds that are competing in the same frequency range as your vocal, try side chaining them out. That way you're not trying to just lower your sounds, but you allow them to just be kind of pushed back at the key moments where the vocal needs to be the forefront. This is an old unit I don't use anymore, really, but it's just so cool looking. I've left it up just in case one day I decide to use it. It's really old. It's 16-bit, but I got a lot of great sounds out of this. And I can tell you when I was doing like the Selena Gomez record, Miley Cyrus, I used a ton of sounds off this thing for sure. All right, so I hope you guys got something out of this. If there was something else you'd like to hear that I didn't talk about, leave it in the comments and I will definitely include it in another video coming up. If you feel like this was useful, please like, please subscribe, and until next time.